Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. It's Thursday, July 9th, 2026, episode 542, and we're going to talk about a K-drama on Netflix right now, Teach You a Lesson. Sorry for the inconsistent upload times, but yeah, I just got back from a little quick family trip, and yeah, and so I was trying to readjust to life back at home and trying to think about what to say. And so I figured I had this sort of on the warmer that if I ever got stuck, I would talk about this. So yeah. So on Netflix right now, there's a little limited mini series called Teach You a Lesson. And IMDb.com has this as its sort of synopsis or give you an overview of what it's about. It says, tells the story of students, parents, and teachers in a society where teachers' rights have fallen due to students who cross the line, parents who don't know the line, and teachers who draw the line. The drama introduces adults who are not afraid of children and tries to properly teach children what they did wrong. Na Hua-jin is a field supervisor at the Teachers' Rights Protection Agency. He is a hexagonal person with a perfect mentality, physicality, and brains, and is the designer of all the plans for the Teachers' Rights Protection Agency. He is also called the Grim Reaper because he is not afraid of absurdity, fear, or compromise, but he is a character who struggles to protect justice and peace. And I got to tell you, it reads like it was translated from Korean, literally. Because I'm sure that some of these expressions like hexagonal person, what? I don't know. I've never heard that used in English, but I can imagine that be an expression in Korean. So anyway, I normally don't watch K-dramas, but I watched one. Now I'm getting all of these suggestions for watching K-dramas and related sort of revenge porn Korean dramas. Now, I grew up in the United States when I never watched K-pop, never listened to K-pop, never listened to Korean dramas because they were just of low quality. And then I think I mentioned this a while ago, but something like maybe 10, 15 years ago, I started getting students who were just all crazy about the Korean entertainment industry, from their music to maybe it was 20 years ago. I don't know. The music, the television programming. And yeah, and if you're familiar with it, then you know how crazy it is. And if you have no idea uh, about any of the Korean entertainment of influence in here in America, then God bless you, because I don't know, it's kind of nutty. But yeah, I never really could understand it, and it was kind of amazing when I started seeing non-Korean students learning Korean, speaking better than I ever could, and also planning to go study in Korea. It was pretty interesting. And I've talked about growing up here in America as a Korean and it being kind of a really weird thing to see Korean culture, anything Korean being considered attractive, popular, or something cool. It just kind of a mind trip, really. But anyway, so getting back to the K-drama itself. So keeping in mind, Korea has a taste for over dramatic exaggeration. That's the only way I can express it. So I'm sure that there are several incidents that made the headlines over in Korea. I don't follow the news over there, so I would imagine that there are some really over the top, tragic, even school incidents. So basically, schools have gotten out of control, and the miniseries implies that, or it basically says that they attribute the main cause of all of this chaos is the ending of corporal punishment in Korean schools. And I gotta tell you, corporal punishment is using a very generous expression. My father was a teacher in Korea before he came to America and got his PhD. And Yeah, he told me stories, and yeah, I don't know if you could say corporal punishment. It would They were beatings. He would put beatings on students, and that's because the school where he taught had actual gang members in his school, and so he would have to uh, take the humongously large rod of discipline to them and literally beat the crap out of them. Uh, but that was ended. And so they couldn't beat on students anymore. And I remember, well, even now, the United States is kind of nutty, students doing violence to each other and to teachers, and teachers also doing crazy things to their students and perhaps to each other. Admin being on a different planet, and then all being controlled by government rules and regulations. I mean, the Austin Metcalf story just ended recently, and so there's that. And the court system, I think all of us are familiar, is very, very slow and often unrighteous, as I've shared with you in my own uh, personal experience. Now, the series, I'm going to give you a kind of talk about the series without giving away any of the story or the plot, um, because I just don't like doing that. I hate when people do that to me, so I won't do it to you. But I don't know. I watched all of them with my wife, and we were pretty entertained by it because we suspended all commentary and just tried to take in the entertainment for entertainment's sake. So the series, as it goes through the various episodes, highlights various aspects of the injustice that's going on in the schools. Students, teachers, administrators, politicians, parents, and just like the HBO miniseries The Wire, I suppose eventually, if there is a season two, they'll probably get to the media and their role in creating the problem that exists in Korea. So, as I said before, the miniseries is kind of a revenge porn. So, if you're really into people getting their just desserts, getting what they deserve, justice through violence, well, this is probably for you. Um, People have to reap what they sow, what they have sown, and people feel good. Truth comes out, the good are rewarded, the evil are punished. There's a certain satisfaction that you feel when the good side outsmarts the bad side. There's a sort of closure because order is restored. And there are several main actors, but the I believe uh, the focus is kind of this pure tragic hero somehow stays one step ahead of everybody else. It's a And he works for a government agency that finally gets it right and doesn't bow to political pressure, social pressure, um, multimedia, what do you call it, social media pressure. And it's exactly what people who suffer under a corrupt system want. I mean, I used to want that all the time. I grew up watching TV series, movies like this, Coach Carter, Stand and Deliver, right? But here's the problem. As much as I enjoyed it, I had to, after watching it, I had to come back to reality, as they say. The problem is that we are being socialized to wait for a hero. And I talked about it when I would talk about Pericles in the Thucydides. He was a great man who everyone trusted. And so whatever he said, everyone trusted it, even if they had their reservations, because he was generally right. And so then whatever he said to do, that's what everyone did. And the problem, of course, is that the great man also makes mistakes. Now, the problem also, the bigger problem of not only just wanting and waiting for a hero that will save the day is the misdirection that happens through a miniseries like this. Whether the misdirection is intentional or not, it is a misdirection. In other words, people want to point uh, at students as the cause of this mess in Korean schools. Maybe they want to point at the teachers or parents, administrators, politicians, whatever. So they're pointing at those different aspects of this phenomena as being either contributory causes for this mess. But it's kind of a misdirection, right? So people are basically saying, well, we just need an agency or a group of people dedicated enough, honest enough to clean up this mess. And that's the misdirection. The true origins of the problem are is government controlled education. So there's no freedom in the whole educational process. And what I think is kind of amusing in a dark sense is that the hero in this case is more government control, more government oversight, right? So what do they call it? They call it the Teachers' Rights Protection Agency, right? Is the agency of the government that is free from corruption, has no hidden agenda. Well, that's negative. Um, and they're going to save the day. But it's not like that. That's not the way things are in the real world. That people who generally get those positions in an agency like that are bureaucrats. They're people who are there who need to perpetuate problems to ensure their own continued employment, right? So it's like if you solve the problem of, wage gaps and minimum wages and all, then why do you need those departments in the government? You don't. And so the incentives are all mixed up. They're all backwards that because they need to keep their job and success at their job is no guarantee for another position. So people are going to perpetuate the problem. So the problem never gets resolved. In fact, it gets worse. And as the problems get worse, then it justifies a bigger budget. You get to hire more people, and you, as an agency, you get more power and influence, right? So I used to always joke around in school that the incentive of a government agency is not to do a fantastic job. The goal and the incentive is to fail, to do a horrible job so that your budget is increased. Because once people start questioning you, why aren't you doing a good job? You say, because our budget is too small. We just don't have enough money. And so uh, you basically ignore then that those agencies themselves, those departments, those government departments, uh, are the actual cause of all of these problems that we have here in society. So government controls the education, government corrupts the rules of education and of society. Government corrupts the court system, which leads to the escalation of violence. And here we are because of all the corruption of the rules, people posturing for the safety of children, for the safety of people, it becomes very, very easy to have lawsuits. And the problem with the lawsuit is that they favor the victim. So there are no repercussions for false accusations. So someone makes an accusation and it turns out to be fake. There are no consequences for the person who falsely accused someone else. And so the law is biased in favor of the accuser. And because of this, then you now have the need for liability insurance. Uh, just in case something goes wrong, you need an insurance company to pay the bills for that inevitability. And that's an added expense to education that shouldn't exist. People also uh, are trying to solve all of these different problems by committee. And often these committees, unlike the miniseries where the agents actually go into the schools, most people have no idea what's going on in the schools. A lot of administrators don't even know what goes on in their schools. Everything is very top down. Well, this is what you told me, and so this is what I think needs to be done, so do it, right? It's very top down oriented structure, and so nothing ever gets resolved. So, what is the simple solution? The solution is actually very simple, and the simple solution is give people freedom. If people had freedom of choice in every aspect of this situation, then the problems would go away in a matter of months. I'll say months. Um, and this is how it would work. Uh, People would choose the school that they want to attend, and the schools in turn can be as selective as they want. And if parents can choose the school that they want to send their child to, then the public school system begins to collapse, right? There's pressure where pressure is needed. In other words, a lot of people want to believe the solution for the problems in big, old city schools is more administration, more administrators. But no, that's not that's not the solution. The solution also is not raising pay of students. Unions are worthless, right? And so uh, that's not where the solution is. It's the ability to choose. If a school is not performing, parents and students should be able to choose a different school. If a school really is bad and irredeemable, then they won't have any customers. They won't have any students. If a school is successful, then they will attract more students, and more people will try to imitate the successful school. And they're not being successful. Their success is not based on their ability to follow the rules, all the regulations of the government, but in actual student success, right? And we'll dig down a little bit deeper, but I talked about a Korean teacher in Korea whose annual income at one point was $100 million. That was his income as a teacher. So if you really are a good teacher, you should be able to reap the rewards of being a good teacher. And if you're a sorry excuse of a teacher, then you shouldn't expect to get more than the minimum. Right. And so better schools will attract better teachers, better students. Well, what about all the other students? Well, you begin to see specialization of schools as well. Other countries already have this, where if you believe that all you need to do is sports, I don't need to learn all this phys science and all this other kind of stuff. Well, then there you go. Maybe you want to only learn sports history because you're going to be a professional athlete. Well, you can create a school that will cater to people who want that. And depending on the success of the graduates, that will determine if you will have more students in the future. And keep in mind that the more you specialize your school, the fewer students that you'd be able to accept, right? Let's just say you have a baseball high school. Well, only the best of the best are going to be there. You're not going to have the largest school in the city. It's not going to be that way because it's so highly specialized and exclusive. Therefore, you're going to have actually smaller schools, smaller class sizes, much easier to manage student populations because they're all highly motivated to be there. uh, Schools should also be free to reject or kick out any student they want. And if you have a badly behaving student, well, that person will realize that unless they get their act in gear, they won't be able to go to any school. So competition would appear in every aspect of the school, from the teachers, administrators, and the students. And parents would have to um, abide by the system. In other words, parents, yes, parents will always try to, especially wealthy, influential parents, they'll try to beat the system. They'll try to corrupt the system through favors, leaking of data, leaking of tests, answers, things like that. But because information is, as we can see, is so open and so readily available, that people will be able to smell corruption from a mile away. And so once a school is tainted by rumors of corruption, then people won't go to that school. Colleges who look at potential graduates from that school will then take a harder look as to whether or not these rumors of corruption, are real or not. If you had a specialized school, like in athletics, well, how good is the school will be easily seen by the level of ability of the graduates. And you can have specialization of school for medicine, specialization for music, for art, anything under the sun. You cater to the abilities and desires of the students and their families. And so it would mean if we went that way and everyone had an absolute complete freedom to choose what kind of education that they wanted, what they wanted to learn, then eventually people figure out what truly is valuable and what is not. It would mean, of course, the end of miniseries and movies like this, Teach You a Lesson, right? Stand and Deliver. It would mean the end of movies like that. But hey, I'll take that trade any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Like if in order to have a better educational system, I can't have entertainment like this any longer, then sure, why not? And then we can look at these movies and say, yeah, that's the way it used to be when the government used to control our education. But hey, look how great we have it now. And so the existence of movies and the system that we have right now, the entertainment, as entertaining as it is, lulls people into a false hope, right? Yeah, we have this horrible situation, but one day a hero is going to appear, or that perfect government agency is going to appear and solve all of our problems. No, that's not how it works. But rather, the solution for all of these problems is individuals' ability to choose, the students' ability to choose, parents and families' ability to choose, teachers' ability to choose, administrators' ability to choose, everyone's ability to choose will then be able to sort out most of these problems in a very, very short period of time. Plus, we can do away with all of the government agencies, all of them. And we as a nation would save so much money. And then we just systematically go through the system and eradicate all of the government agencies which serve no benefit to the population as a whole. And believe me, most of them would not survive. And that's it for this episode, a little bit of food for thought as we are now being dragged back into war by incredibly our incredible government. I'll just leave it at that. So I'll talk to you guys next time.